Share the magic of the top quality, award-winning programs from the Family Home Entertainment Library, like Marjorie Williams' beloved children's story of The Velveteen Rabbit. This enchanting tale of the toy bunny who comes to life has been told to children for generations. Now your child can savor this warm, wonderful treat on video. And 3 Parents' Choice Award winners from master storyteller Rudyard Kipling are waiting to delight and enlighten young viewers. First, it's The White Seal. Set to Beethoven's music and voiced by Roddy McDowell, this video gem shines on all levels of children's entertainment.
Right. Very right indeed.
Then, it's Mowgli's Brothers, the Jungle Book adventure of a boy raised by wolves. And there's more Jungle Book excitement with Rikki Tikki Tavi, starring the voice of Orson Welles. An irresistible yarn of a brave mongoose who risks his life to become a trusted family pet.
The little chap has saved our lives now.
The Velveteen Rabbit, The White Seal, Mowgli's Brothers, and Rikki Tikki Tavi, the brightest bets on video cassette. Available to you from Family Home Entertainment.
One morning when Will Cwac came down to the kitchen to have breakfast, his mother was busy mixing flour in a large bowl.
Quack! Mom, you're making a cake, aren't you? You're making a cake,
he said. Yes, Will, but don't get excited about it, my little Quack, because it's a cake for Mari Pickles, his mother answered. Then when she saw his face fall, she added, "But if there's any honey left over, I'll make you a honey sandwich." Will had to be satisfied with that. As he finished his porridge, he heard his mother suddenly say, "There isn't half enough honey. Someone will have to go down to the shop and get some more." Will was more than ready to fetch a pot of honey if there was a chance of a honey sandwich for him as a reward. So he got up from the table, snatched his cap, and was on his way to the village in the twinkling of an eye. Naturally, he had to call on Ivan on the way. Will said,
"Thank you very much."
When Mr. Pugh the shop wrapped the honey and gave it to him with a smile. Then the two friends left the shop and started to walk home. After a little while, Ivan said,
Gobble, gobble, Will. Gobble, do you think I could have a little peep at the honey?
Will saw nothing wrong in that, so he opened the paper and the two of them stared greedily at the honey. Then Ivan asked,
Gobble, gobble, Will. Do you think I could have a little sniff at the honey?
Will saw nothing wrong in that either, so he opened the honey pot and the two of them sniffed the lovely honey. It smelled delicious. Then he even said,
Gobble, gobble, Will. It would be lovely to have a little taste, wouldn't it?
And Will thought, since his mother had promised him a honey sandwich, it wouldn't matter if he were to take the honey that would have gone into the sandwich and share it with Ivan. So Ivan took a little of the honey in his beak, and then Will did the same, and oh, it was really so delicious. And then Ivan said,
Gobble, gobble, Will. It's scrumptious. Can you spare just a tiny bit more?
But before Will could answer, they heard a loud buzzing noise coming towards them.
Quack! Great snails! Honeybees!
Cried Will.
Run for your life, Even! Quack!
The next second, Will and Even were running down the high street with hundreds of bees chasing them. They passed Owie Policeman's house and Even's house and disappeared from the village towards Will's home, with the bees getting closer all the time. As they ran into the farmyard, Will tripped over a stone, the honey pot slipped from his grasp and smashed into smithereens. The next second, Even fell headlong over him.
Great snails! We'd had it now.
Will cried, and
Help! Gobble, gobble, help! Oh!
cried Even. But then, thank goodness, they both felt themselves being picked up by someone very strong.
Heavens above, boys! Quick!
Said Humphrey as he carried them both into the kitchen.
Cwac! Thanks, Dad.
Cried Will, and
Thank you very much. Gobble, gobble.
said Even. Then the three of them stood by the window and looked out at the honeybees eating the honey. Mari Pickles didn't have her cake that afternoon after all, and Will didn't get his sandwich either. But still, we don't always get what we want, do we?
Good night, Cwac.
One day when Will woke up, he knew it was going to be his lucky day. As he dressed and went downstairs, he wondered what kind of luck he was going to have. Maybe he'd get all his sums right in school, he thought, as he ate his wasp porridge. Bye now, he cried, and hurried out, slamming the door behind him on his way to school. He didn't get all his sums right, however, and when he started on his way home that afternoon, he knew it hadn't been his lucky day so far. But then he saw a horseshoe lying on the roadside.
Cwac! A horseshoe!
He said to himself.
If I take it home with me, it's sure to bring me luck.
When he reached home, his father and mother were searching for something in the farmyard, and Will saw his chance to put the horseshoe up somewhere without being seen. So he crept round the corner and in through the door very quietly. There was a plate of snail jam sandwiches on the table and a note telling him to have a snack until supper. The next second, he was stuffing himself with sandwiches as though he hadn't eaten for days. When he'd swallowed 3 sandwiches and was halfway through a 4th, he suddenly remembered that he'd forgotten everything about the horseshoe. So he squashed the sandwich into his mouth, fetched the horseshoe, and started to think where to put it. He looked around the room. The kitchen would be best, where everyone could see it every day and have good luck. His first idea was to nail the horseshoe above the mantelpiece, but it was crammed with things. Then Will thought it would be a good idea to nail the horseshoe to the wall above the mirror. So he fetched a hammer and some nails and dragged a chair from the table over to the wall in order to stand on it. But as he hit the nail, the hammer bounced out of his grasp and landed on his foot.
Oh, ouch! My foot, Cwac! Oh! Ah!
In a minute or so, he got back up onto the chair and gave the nail a real thump with the hammer. But he lost his balance.
Great snails! Help! Cwac! Oh,
He cried and flapped his wings, but it was no use. The chair slipped from under him, and the next second the horseshoe plunked him on the head.
ouch! My poor head! Cwac! Oh!
He was in a really bad mood, but then he remembered
3 tries for a Welshman! Cwac!
So he got back up onto the chair a 3rd time and began to tap the nail carefully. This time, the nail sank slowly into the wall. One more tap and it would be firmly in its place. But when Will gave the nail that final tap, wow! A huge piece of plaster, the nail and the horseshoe all came down on Will's beak.
Ouch! My poor beak! Oh, Cwac! Oh!
When Will saw the mess, he became even more angry.
Cwac! Drat that old horseshoe!
And he picked it up and hurled it out into the farmyard, shouting,
Go away, you unlucky nuisance! Cwac!
But then he froze where he stood as he heard a cry of pain in the farmyard and his father shouting,
Heavens above, my poor head! Oh!
At the same time, he heard his mother saying, Well, goodness me, Humphrey, there's the money we were looking for. Well, of course, Will had a talking to from his mother for hitting his father with the horseshoe, but as he'd helped find the money, she forgave him and gave him a large piece of spider cake with snail cream over it. Before he fell asleep, Will thought to himself that the horseshoe was the lucky one after all.
Good night, Cwac.
One day, as Will Cwac got up, he decided to go to the mill to play with Dick. He hurried downstairs and started to gulp his wasp porridge as though he hadn't seen food for days. Will, don't gulp your food so quickly, said Martha.
Cwac. All right, Mom.
Will replied. After finishing his breakfast, Will cried
So long, Mom.
and hurried out.
What did you say?
Martha began, but she was too late. Before long, Will reached the crossroads by the woods, and he took the right-hand turning past Shawnee's house.
Cwac. Hello, Shawnee.
Said Will.
Are you coming with me to call on Dick?
Go, go, go. Yeah, sure.
Shawnee answered. Dick was very pleased to see them.
Hi. How about a game of football?
He suggested eagerly. But Shawnee said, "That won't be much fun with only the three of us, you know, Dick." And then Will said,
Hey, boys, why don't we go out on the pond in Dick's father's boat?
"Whoa! Yeah, great," said Shawnee.
And we can row in turns.
So the three of them went down to the pond. There was plenty of room for them in the boat,
You row first, Shawnee,
said Dick.
and then Will can have a turn. All right? Fantastic!
Said the other two. Shawnee had rowed before and knew exactly how to make the boat turn to the left and to the right and go in a circle. He could even row backwards. And between you and me, he also knew how to smack the oars on the water and splash drops of water over Will and Dick. Accidentally, of course. Then it was Will's turn to row. He did quite as well as Shawnee and rowed this way and that way until both Shawnee and Dick were amazed.
Go, 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 Will. I didn't know you could row so well.
Said Shawnee.
Neither did I.
Said Dick. Then when Will had just turned the nose of the boat towards the middle of the pond, he heard the sound of something moving in the water behind him. Shawnee gave a loud scream of fear.
Go, 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 a monster! Quack! Yes!
Cried Dick.
It's the Millness monster! Help! What'll we do?
Come on, you guys. Let's get going.
The monster! Quack!
Will gasped in terror.
Ah!
Row for the shore, Will, for goodness sake.
Shawnee cried.
I'm scared. Quack! All right!
Will shouted, and he began to row hurriedly. But then he thought, if the monster was behind him, then he was rowing straight towards it. The thing to do was to turn the boat round at once and row the other way. And that was when things went wrong. Will became so confused that he let go of one of the oars and it slipped into the middle of the pond.
Quack! What'll we do now?
Gasped Dick, and
Go, go, go. The Millness monster.
wailed Shawnee. And then Will felt the boat go down on one side, as if someone heavy were leaning on it. The next moment, a large green head came into view.
Quack! Oh, Mr. Monster! Oh, don't eat me, please! Quack!
Oh, who are you calling a monster, you silly little quack?
Came a familiar voice. And who was staring at them with a broad grin on his face but Hugh? And then, of course, the three realized that Hugh had played a trick on them. They all had a marvelous time in the boat after Hugh found the missing oar, and when Will went to bed that night, He was sure that it had been one of the best days he'd ever spent on the mill pond.
Some monster. Good night. Quack.
Will Cwac was fast asleep when Martha, his mother, opened his bedroom door. Still sleeping, Will? Wake up, little Cwac. All your friends are here.
Quack. Oh, all right, Mom.
Will replied, and he jumped out of bed, dressed quickly, and hurried down to the kitchen.
Hello, everyone. Quack.
He called cheerfully, and, "Hello, Will."
Hello, Will.
They all replied.
Hey, Will, you slept late today, didn't you?
Said Hugh.
Yes, you did, Gobble Gobble. We all got up ages ago.
Said Even. By now, of course, Will was gobbling his wasp porridge as though he hadn't seen food for days.
Quack. Why did you sleep so late this morning, Will?
Asked Dick.
Quack. I was dreaming about robbers, and I was a policeman, and I caught them all. Finished, Mom?
He called. Will, where are your manners? Martha said. But she wasn't angry, really. And to show it, she said kindly, "You may go out and play with your friends now, if you like."
Thanks, Mom. Quack, come on, boy.
And he snatched his cap as he went.
Hurry up. What do we play, Gobble Gobble? Football, hey?
Asked Even. But Dick had left the ball at home that morning. Then Will had an idea.
Why don't we play cops and robbers?
He suggested. And they all said, "Great!" As it was his idea, Will had first go as a policeman, and he chose Hugh to be a policeman with him.
What do we do for treasure, Gobble Gobble?
Asked Even.
Quack, I know. We'll use my cap. Look.
Cried Will, and he hung it on the clothesline. Shawnee, Dick, and Even were the robbers, and away they raced to hide.
18, 19, 20. Coming, ready or not?
Called Will.
Oh, Will, where are they, I wonder?
Hugh asked.
I don't know.
Will replied.
You go that way, and I'll go this way, all right?
All right.
Hugh answered. While Will was peering into the coal house and Hugh was looking over the wall into the big field, the others peeked out slyly from their hiding places. Then the three of them began to creep quietly towards the cap. But Will saw them and shouted,
Quack, Hugh, come here!
and began to run as fast as he could to get to the treasure before the robbers. Suddenly, the air was full of shouting and feet running as they all rushed for the cap. But at that very moment, Will's mother came out to the backyard, and when she saw Will running at full speed and the others all chasing after him, she raised her brush and shouted,
You cruel boys! You leave our Will alone!
There was such a noise, everyone shouting and crying as Martha brushed them all, including Will, straight into the snail puddle. When Will explained that they were only playing cops and robbers, she was very sorry, but Humphrey still had to come and pump fresh water over them, saying,
Oh, heavens above!
Martha gave them all a spoonful of her medicine so as not to catch cold, and then they all had a bowl of warm snail soup and a piece of spider cake with snail cream over it. When Will went to bed that night, he smiled to himself as he knew that he wouldn't have had so much to eat if his mother hadn't made that silly mistake.
Good night. Quack.
One morning, Martha came into Will's bedroom looking very fierce.
Quack, Mom. What's the matter?
What's the matter? It's these holes in your clothes, of course. You've been climbing trees again, haven't you? She said. as she handed him another pair of trousers. "Look, here's a new pair for you to wear. Now you look after them this time, and come and have your breakfast." Will dressed quickly and hurried down to the kitchen. As he was finishing his breakfast, there came a knock on the door, and there were all his friends, and even said,
"Is Will coming out to play, please? Gobble, gobble."
"Well, all right," said Martha. "Remember, Will, no climbing trees."
Quack! All right, Mom.
Will replied, and out he went with the others to play football in the big field. It was a great game. The ball flew backwards and forwards, and they were all very amused. When the ball came to Shawnee, however, he gave it such a hard kick that it shot high into the air and landed in the topmost branches of a tall tree.
My ball!
Said Dick sadly.
How will I get it down from there?
Then Will said,
Quack, Dick. Don't worry. I'll go up and get it for you.
Everybody looked at him in surprise.
Gobble, Will, your mother told you not to climb trees, didn't she?
Said Even. Will smiled.
Yes, but she didn't tell me not to fly.
And away he went. It didn't take him long to find the ball between two branches. He picked it up and shouted,
Here it comes!
and threw it down. Then he looked around him. He could see the whole countryside for miles around. But then, the tragedy happened. Will was about to fly down when the branch snapped under his weight, and he slipped down until the stub of the branch tore a huge hole in his trousers. His friends heard a loud quack and saw Will hanging by his trousers, unable to move.
We better get Will's father at once,
cried Dick. And Shawnee said, I'll go, and ran as fast as he could go to the farm. Humphrey didn't take long to hurry over and look up at Will.
Oh, can you move?
He called.
No, Dad! I'm stuck!
Will answered.
All right.
Said Humphrey.
Bye for now.
Quack! What do you mean, bye for now? I can't move!
Exactly.
His father called back.
You just stay there for an hour or two. Maybe you'll learn not to climb trees and tear your clothes then.
And Humphrey started back towards the farmyard, shaking with laughter. Well, of course, when Dick and the others followed him and explained that Will hadn't climbed the tree, but had only flown up in order to get Dick's ball, Humphrey forgave him and fetched a ladder to get him down. When Martha heard about it, she laughed and laughed until her eyes were full of tears. And she forgave Will for tearing his trousers and gave him and his friends a piece of spider cake each. When Will went to bed that night, he thought he had the best father and mother in the world. But he decided not to climb trees ever again.
Good night. Quack.
One morning, Will Cwac Cwac was fast asleep when Martha shouted,
Will, get up at once. Your wasp porridge is ready.
He got up, dressed quickly, and hurried down to the kitchen. It didn't take long for him to eat the porridge. Then he snatched his cap and said,
Thanks. Bye for now.
We want you to come home straight from school this afternoon because your father and I want to go out to see Mari Pickles after tea, said Martha.
All right,
Said Will, and away he went. At the end of the school day, Mr. Jones said,
Goodbye, Goodbye, children. You've all worked very hard today. Off you go.
In the farmhouse, Will's tea was waiting for him on the table. "I hope Will isn't late coming home," said Martha.
Cwac. So do I.
Answered Humphrey. But a long time passed with no sign of Will. "Where's that naughty little Cwac?" Martha said. "He should have been home long ago."
Wasting time playing with those friends of his, maybe.
Said Humphrey. Then Martha put on her hat and said, "Come on, Humphrey, we'll go and find him." So Humphrey and Martha set out towards the village. They called at Evan's place as they went past.
No, Gobble Gobble, Will isn't here, honestly.
Said Even. And then he realized that he hadn't seen Will at all after school. Will hadn't gone home with his other friends either. Humphrey and Martha went on towards the school, thinking that Will had been kept in.
Kept in?
Said Mr. Jones.
No, indeed he hasn't. Will hasn't been naughty today.
By now, Martha was very worried. "Humphrey, if Will isn't here, where can he be? Maybe he's lost his memory and has wandered away. Or maybe he's been kidnapped." They hurried to Owie Policeman's house at once to tell him about it. Owie looked very serious and said,
You two had better go home at once, in case Will should come home by himself. And I will go and search for him.
So Humphrey and Martha went home feeling very worried, and Owie Policeman started to look for Will. The first thing he did was to have a word with Mr. Jones, the school.
Mr. Jones,
He said,
is it true that nobody remembers seeing Will after school?
That's right.
Mr. Jones answered.
And is it true that nobody remembers seeing Will leaving school either?
Owie said.
Right again,
Said Mr. Jones.
Well, in that case, we'd better search the school carefully, hadn't we?
The two of them went in and looked around. Mr. Jones said,
Will isn't here, Mr. Policeman.
"Isn't
He indeed.
Said Owie Policeman.
What's this?
The playhouse, of course.
Answered Mr. Jones. And when they looked into the playhouse, who was there but Will Cwac, fast asleep? The two began to laugh and woke Will up and told him to go home at once. Will had such a welcome when he got home. And of course he had a huge piece of spider cake with snail cream over it for supper. When Will went to bed that night, he simply had to smile when he thought of people searching for him while he was fast asleep all the time.
Good night. Quack.
One morning, Will Cwac was fast asleep when he heard a voice laughing and calling.
Wake up, you lazy quack. I want my breakfast.
It was Cousin Percy. He was spending a week at the farm. Will got up and dressed quickly, and then the two of them hurried down to the kitchen. 2 bowls full of washed porridge were waiting on the table, as usual, and they didn't take long to eat it all up. Then Will's mother said to them, "Quack, boys, I wonder, would you mind going to Mari Pickles for me this morning?" Will's face was very long as they left the house and walked towards the village.
Well, we don't have to stay long, and maybe she'll give us a piece of spider cake.
Percy said. He was right. Mari Pickles was so glad to see them, she gave them both a piece of spider cake covered in snail cream, and a penny each as well. They simply had to call in Mr. Pugh, the shop at once to spend their money. Mr. Pugh was in the middle of showing something to Dr. Parry, but he left him for a minute while he sold sweets to Will and Percy. Mr. Pugh had a contented smile on his face when they left. They'd hardly stepped out from the shop, however, when they heard the most frightening roar.
Thieves! Stop, thieves!
The next second, Mr. Pugh appeared, and when he saw Will and Percy, his face turned purple.
There they are! Stop them!
Well, naturally, this frightened them, and they began to run away, shouting,
Help! Quack!
and making so much noise that Owie policeman woke up and fell out of his hammock. He began. Then he leapt to his feet and blew his whistle. Martha, Will's mother, was hanging clothes on the line when she heard the noise. And the next moment, the farmyard was full of screams and gasps as Mr. Pugh and Owie policeman tried to catch Will and Percy. They ran to hide beneath Martha's apron. She didn't know what to say when Mr. Pugh said that one of the boys was a thief and had stolen a ring from the shop.
Oh, Will, is this true?
Said Martha.
Quack! No, Mom, really?
Will answered.
I'm not a thief, Mr. Owie policeman. Quack!
Ah, no, he isn't.
It was Dr. Parry, who'd seen what had happened and hurried after them.
You see, it was I who took the ring.
You? Everybody exclaimed in surprise.
Yes, well, I was thinking of buying a ring for Mrs. Parry's birthday, and I picked it up and took it out into the street to have a better look at it in the sunlight. Here it is, look!
Said Dr. Parry. Well, of course, Mr. Pugh and Owie policeman were very sorry they'd blamed Will and Percy, and Mr. Pugh told them to come down to the shop to have a penny worth of sweets each, free. When Will and Percy went to bed that night, Percy couldn't get to sleep for ages because Mr. Pugh the shop had to give them a penny worth of sweets, free.
Good night, Quack.
One morning, Will got up early, dressed quickly, and hurried down to the kitchen to have his breakfast.
Quack! Hello, Mom!
Goodness me! You're up early today, aren't you? Said Martha, his mother.
Quack! Yes, Mom.
Answered Will.
Today's the day of the concert, isn't it?
Why, yes, of course, little Quack, said Martha.
And I'm going to win the singing competition and the recitation and...
Stop there, Will. Don't you set your heart on winning, in case you're disappointed,
But I'm sure to win something, Mom.
Will said.
I can recite better than anyone else in class.
Enough of that, Will. It isn't very nice to hear someone boasting. Come along. You'd better eat up your porridge and get off to school.
Quack! All right, Mom.
Will replied.
Bye-bye for now. See you later.
When Will reached the schoolyard, all his friends were there. They were all practicing hard for the concert. Will smiled and said,
Quack! Just you wait until this afternoon, boys.
At last the afternoon came, and it was time for the school concert. They all helped to move the desks out of the way and put out chairs. The room was full when Mr. Jones said,
Welcome to our school concert. The first competition is the solo recitation, and the first competitor is Will Quack Quack.
Will stood in front of them all, determined to show them who was the best reciter in school. He gave a little cough, took a deep breath, and said,
Gee up, Nettie!
The room was quite still, and everyone was listening intently. Will took another deep breath and saw his mother sitting in the front row and forgot all the words except the title.
Gee up, Nettie!
he began, looking at his mother. She smiled kindly at him.
Cheer up, Nettie,
He said again, but the words were still lost, and the smile vanished from his mother's face.
Oh.
Then he heard someone giggling at the back of the room. At that, tears came to his eyes, and he ran to his mother, feeling bitterly ashamed.
Cwac, I want to go home.
Will cried, and the next moment his mother and father got up and took him out. Nobody said a word on the way home, but when they were inside the house, Will started to cry.
I'm sorry, Mom.
He cried.
I forgot the words. And now you and Dad won't love me anymore. Cwac.
You silly little quack, Will.
Said his mother.
Come here.
And the next moment his mother took him on her lap and gave him a big hug. Of course your father and I love you, Will. It's only important to take part and do your best. Winning doesn't matter at all.
Cwac? Really?
Said Will. Yes, really. Come now, dry your tears, and you'll have a piece of my spider cake. Well, Will was so glad that his mother didn't mind about the concert, he gave her a big kiss, and then he ate the spider cake. When he went to bed that night, he decided he'd never, ever boast again.
Oh, no. Cwac.
One morning, Will Cwac was making a fishing rod with an empty spool and a bent nail. His mother called to him.
Hey, little Quack, come here, will you?
Cwac. All right, Mom.
Said Will, and he hid the rod under the bed. Martha had told him never to go near the mill pond ever since the time the boys had got soaked there playing leapfrog, and if she were to see the fishing rod, she'd be sure to have hysterics.
Oh, little Quack,
Said Martha.
I want you to go on an errand to Mari Pickles' house at once.
Will's face fell.
Cwac, do I have to?
He asked.
I promised to meet the boys.
Oh, tut-tut, said Martha. You'll have plenty of time after doing the errand, and you'll have something nice to eat afterwards.
Will cheered up on hearing this, and after she'd given him the message, he rushed out of the house. Now, who happened to be coming to meet him on the way but all his friends, and they all had a fishing rod and a net each.
Gobble, gobble, Will.
Said Even.
Where's your rod? Cwac, under the bed. I've got to go on an errand to the village, but I won't be long. You go on, and I'll come after you.
And Will hurried off to the village, running past Mr. Pugh the shop, turning the corner by Owie Policeman's house, then full speed to Mari Pickles' cottage.
Cwac! Mari Pickles, Mom wants you to come to tea this afternoon, and she's going to make you snail cake if you'll come. Will you come?
Well, yes, of course I'll come. Thank you very much. Come in and have a piece of a...
But Will had already gone, almost running into Owie Policeman.
What?
Gasped Owie. But by the time he recovered, Will was disappearing into the distance. When he got home, Martha was carrying out the big wash tub.
Mom, Mari Pickles says thank you. She's coming this afternoon.
Well done, Will. There's a piece of worm cake on the table for you for being a good boy.
Thanks, Mom.
And he hurried upstairs to get the fishing rod. But how could he get out of the house without his mother knowing? As he was wondering what to do, a voice called,
Will, gobble, gobble. Are you coming with us or not?
Cwac, yes.
And before anyone could say another word, he took hold of the fishing rod and jumped out through the window. "Hey, stop!" shouted Shawnee. But it was too late. Into the wash tub he plunged.
Quack!
And then he shut his mouth in case more soap should go down his throat. When Martha saw Will, she almost had a fit.
Oh, Will, you naughty little quack. What are you doing there?
And she called his father to come at once to wash him under the pump.
Heavens above!
Said Humphrey when he saw Will covered in soap. And he pumped and pumped until Will was even wetter than before. Then Martha took him into the kitchen, dried him, gave him a soup spoonful of soft soap, lamp oil, and black soot, and sent him to bed for the rest of the day in case he should catch cold. Poor Will. He didn't go fishing that morning after all.
Quack!
One morning, Will lay in bed thinking about what he was going to do that day. He opened one eye and looked towards the window to see what the weather was like. Then he opened the other eye and smiled. It was a beautiful day, perfect to go and call on his friends. He got up at once, got dressed quickly, and hurried downstairs to the kitchen to have his breakfast. As usual, there was a bowl of wasp porridge waiting for him on the table. It didn't take him long to gulp the porridge down. Then he snatched his cap and was away like a flash of lightning.
Oh. Quack! Oh, nice to be out in the sunshine.
Will thought, as he hurried along the road that led to the village. This time, however, he decided to turn right at the crossroads and call on his friends. Before long, Will, Shawnee, and Hugh were knocking on the mill door and asking Dick to come out to play.
Great, boys. What'll we do today?
Asked Dick.
Honk, I'd like to go for a swim in the mill pond.
Good idea.
Said Hugh.
Great.
The others agreed.
The mill pond.
Oh,
The mill pond. Yeah, the mill
But when they got to the water's edge, there was a new sign there which said, "Danger, no bathing." Hugh was very disappointed, but he cheered up when Shawnee suggested going to call on Ivan and then having a game of football. As it happened, Ivan was coming along the road on his way to call for Will, so they all went together to the big field. Dick had only just kicked off when a large raindrop landed on his beak. Then another one, and the next second, the sky grew dark as a big black cloud passed over. It started to pour with rain, and there was thunder and lightning everywhere.
Quack! We better take cover!
Cried Will, and he would have made straight for the nearest tree had not Shawnee said it was dangerous to shelter under a tree in a storm. So they began to hurry across the big field towards the farmyard, getting wetter every second. As they reached the hedge between the big field and the farmyard, the rain stopped as suddenly as it had started, and the sun came out to shine once more.
Oh, Honk, it isn't raining now. Thank goodness.
Said Hugh, and he flopped down at the foot of the hedge, completely out of breath. And then the others sat down as well and gazed at the steam rising from the ground in the warmth of the sun.
Quack! Boys, isn't it just great here?
Will said.
Yes, it sure is, Gobble Gobble.
Even answered as he winked at the sun.
The cloud's gone. We won't have a soaking after all.
But at that very moment, a shower of soapy water landed on top of them and soaked them to the skin once again. Humphrey, Will's father, had just thrown the contents of the wash tub over the hedge.
Well, of course, when Humphrey saw what had happened, he was very sorry.
But Martha insisted that he should pump water over the five to get them really clean. So Humphrey pumped hard, saying,
Heavens above! I'm very sorry, boys.
and then Martha took them into the house to have a bowl of snail soup to warm them up. That night, when Will went to bed and snuggled down under the clothes, he decided he'd never go near the hedge again, just in case.